Ufotable's first step into TV anime came in late 2002 with Vice Ghost Gloon, the sequel to the 1998 series originally made by Studio Plum and Magic Bus. On purely technical level, Gloon improved from its predecessor. The sequel looks noticeably sharper, the animations, the design felt much better to me. But as a story, I honestly struggled to connect with it. Part of it might be that I'm not really the target audience. The series leans heavily into melodrama and characters that just never click with me. The plot has moments where it's so over the top that it's unintentionally entertaining, but not in a way that makes me want to revisit it. As a debut, it's an interesting curiosity. You can see Ufotable trying to establish themselves, flexing some of their animation skills. But as an anime on its own, it doesn't leave much of an impression. It's one of those shows where I finish it and know I'll probably never touch it again. Dokkoida is a light-hearted slice-of-life comedy that parodies superhero tropes. The premise is already silly in the best way possible. Heroes, rivals, villains, humans, and even aliens all end up living together under the same roof, completely unaware of each other's real identities. Instead of building one big overarching storyline, the show plays more like a sitcom. Each episode feels self-contained, leaning on absurd misunderstandings, slapstick comedy, and plenty of cliches that were all too common in early 2000s anime. There's also a fair amount of fan service, which kind of the norm back then. What really kept me watching though were the characters. Each of them has just enough backstory and emotional beat that sometimes caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting a goofy parody series to actually make me tear up once or twice. Comedy is subjective, of course, but I found myself smiling more often than I expected. The production quality is surprisingly solid for its time. The animation is fluid, the art style is colorful, and while I don't have a huge backlog of early 2000s anime to compare against it, it never felt rough or hard to watch. Dokkoida has a certain charm that makes it stand out among Ufotable's early works. Tristia of the Deep Blue Sea is a short OVA adaptation of a video game by the same name. And here's the thing, if you've never played the game, jumping straight into the OVA is like walking into a middle of a story you were never told. I don't know if the original game has a great narrative, but as someone experiencing only the anime, I constantly felt like I was missing something. Important background details, character development, and world building all seem to be left out. Instead of starting from the beginning, the OVA feels like it only adapts a slice of the game, which makes it hard to connect unless you're already a fan. On the technical side, it's not that bad. The backgrounds are lovely, the characters are cute, and the music is actually quite nice. The animation is decent for an OVA for its time. If you are someone who loved the original game, I can imagine this being a fun bonus. But for me, coming in blind, it was a flat experience. Pretty on the surface, but hollow underneath. It is a polished little project for the fans of the game, but if you haven't played it, it's not worth much on its own. Ninja Nonsense is Ufotable leaning hard into absurdist comedy. The series follows Shinobu, a young woman training to become a ninja. But don't expect a serious martial arts story. Instead, the show dives into surreal humor, random gags, and disjointed episodic plots that focus as much on Shinobu's daily life and friends as they do on any actual ninja training. Compared to Ufotable's early works, Ninja Nonsense is visually brighter and more colorful with distinct art style that really sets it apart. The characters are eccentric, the humor is really weird, and it doesn't shy away from fan service, though that part never really clicked for me. It's also very much a product of its era. That said, the animation is lively, and you can clearly see Ufotables continuing to refine their craft. The comedic timing works surprisingly well, and while I didn't always vibe with the art style, the absurd energy carried it further than I expected. It's definitely not for everyone, but if you're into offbeat comedy with a bit of early 2000s flavor, Ninja Nonsense is a quirky little gem in Ufotable's catalog. Before Futakoi Alternative, there was Futakoi, pretty standard harem romance anime produced by Telecom Animation Film. It followed a middle school boy who, for some reason, attracted the attentions of multiple twin sisters. It leaned heavily on cliches and tropes, offering little more than its gimmick of a lot of twins. But Ufotable Futakoi Alternative flips entire premise on its head. Instead of by-the-numbers school's romance, we get a stylish mix of slapstick actions, detective drama, and even an avant-garde storytelling. The protagonist is no longer a love-struck teenager, but a 21-year-old private detective caught in the chaotic world of where comedy, romance, and danger constantly collide. The biggest change is how romance is handled. Instead of juggling multiple twins' love interests, the story focuses more seriously on one relationship, while the other twins' characters become side roles. That shift makes the romance feels more grounded and mature than in the original. The soundtrack is good and Ufotable soft animation, and the result is a show that constantly keeps you engaged. What surprised me the most is how much I actually enjoyed this series. One episode might be ridiculously slapstick comedy, the next might hit with genuine emotions. The unpredictability is its strength, and the stylish executions make it stand out even today. Coyote Ragtime shows is Ufotable's attempt at a space western adventure. On paper, it sounds fantastic. A notorious outlaw named Mr. sets out to recover a legendary treasure left by his late friend. The opening episode hooked me right away. It's fast-paced, stylish, and packed with actions. Characters are introduced in bold strokes, settings feels alive, and the music hits all the notes to get you invested. Honestly, the first episode might be the best part of the entire series. But unfortunately, the momentum doesn't last. As the series goes on, the pacing slows, the plot loses focus, and many of the characters who were stands out in the beginning don't get development they deserve. Instead, more emphasis is placed on Mr. and his gang, but not in a way that carries the same weight or intrigue. It almost feels like the show wanted to become a Cowboy Bebop style epic but couldn't quite live up to it. That said, it's not without its charm. The soundtrack stays strong throughout, and the show still has moments of excitement. But when you start with such a strong opening, everything afterward feels like a letdown. Released in 2007, Gakuen Utopia Manabi Straight feels like a shift for Ufotable. Instead of action or absurdist comedy, it leans into the moe slice of life genre, what many fans call the cute girls doing cute things category. The story takes place in the year of 2035, where Japan's declining birth rate has caused high school to shut down due to the lack of students. It's a pretty sobering premise, but the show itself is anything but depressing. At its core, it follows Manabi Amamiya, a cheerful transfer student whose optimism and energy inspire her classmates to keep their school alive. The tone is warm, lighthearted, and full of moments designed to make you smile. It's more about daily lives and friendship of the characters than the larger social issues lingering in the background. While moe slice of life anime isn't usually my go-to genre, I found this one surprisingly enjoyable. That said, what really intrigued me wasn't the characters, it's the world itself. Set in the near future Japan, there are hints of fascinating technology and world building sprinkled around. Gadgets, settings, little details that suggest a bigger story just out of reach. I almost wish the show explored more about that instead of focusing so tightly on school life. Still, Manabi Straight succeeds at what it sets out to do. It's cozy, sweet, and uplifting, with just enough polish in its animation and design to make it memorable. Ufotable's first major dive into adapting a popular JRPG came with Tales of Symphonia the animation. For fans of the Tales franchise, this is one of the most beloved entries, so the expectations were high. But my situation though, I've never played Tales of Symphonia. My only real experience with the series is only Tales of the Abyss. So going into this anime, I couldn't compare it point for point with the game. What I can say, however, is that adapting a long RPG into a short OVA series is never easy, and you can definitely feel the strain here. The pacing is choppy, the whole story arcs and character beats clearly condensed or skipped over. At times, it feels like you're watching a highlight reel or major moments rather than a fully fleshed out story. That said, when Ufotable focuses on key moments, they absolutely deliver. The animations bring the battles and emotional climaxes to life, and a few scenes even manage to get me genuinely attached to the characters, despite my limited knowledge of the source material. It's the kind of adaptation that left me curious. I actually wanted to play the game afterward, just to experience the full journey. While the anime may not stand on its own as the definitive way to enjoy Tales of Symphonia, it succeeds in showcasing why people love the game in the first place. I love Kara no Kyokai. I love its character, I love its music, I love its atmosphere. It's definitely not the kind of story I can recommend just to anyone, especially because of how it tells its narrative in such an unusual, non-chronological way. But honestly, that's exactly why I became so attached to it. There's nothing else out there that feels quite like the series. The heavy mood, the haunting soundtrack by Yuki Kajiura, the thought beauty of Shikiryogi as a protagonist, Kara no Kyokai is less of a casual watch and more of an experience. It's slow, dense, and often difficult to follow, but it rewards you with some of the most striking visuals and atmosphere anime has ever produced. For Ufotable, this was the project that changed everything. It proved they could create something artistic, ambitious, and unforgettable. A masterpiece of style and mood. Not for everyone, but for me, it becomes an all-time favorite. Before Demon Slayer, Ufotable actually had a chance to adapt a Shonen Jump title, Toriko. This OVA, released in 2009, adapts just the first 2 chapters of the manga. It's not a full series, so there's only so much you can take away from it after just 1 episode. That said, it's fine adaptation, faithful to the manga, with clean animation and a nice sense of energy. It works as quick introduction to the world of gourmet hunting, even if it doesn't go deep enough to leave a lasting impact. Yuri Seijin Naoko-san is another OVA from Ufotable, and honestly, it's really weird. After finishing it, I wasn't even sure what to say. The whole thing is stuffed with lewd jokes, absurd gags, and parodies of both slice of life tropes and Yuri cliches, all told with a completely surreal sense of humor. The animation itself is simple but highly expressive, leaning into a wacky, exaggerated art style that matches the absurd tone. In the right mood, it can be fun, chaotic little watch, but overall, it feels more like a strange experiment than a memorable project. Fate Zero tells the story of the Fourth Holy Grail War, a deadly ritual where the 7 mages called masters summon legendary heroes known as servants from history and myth to fight in battle royale. At stake is the Holy Grail itself, a magical artifact said to grant any wish. Set 10 years before Fate Stay Night, Fate Zero is without a doubt one of the most important and best anime Ufotable has ever made. This was the adaptations that put both the Fate series and Ufotable on the global anime map. As someone who first entered the Fate franchise to the Fate Stay Night visual novel, I absolutely love Fate Zero. It's a tragedy that lays the groundwork for the events of the Fate Stay Night, filled with unforgettable characters, witty themes, and hauntingly beautiful moments. And the way Ufotable adapted it, it's nothing short of stunning. The fight scenes are legendary, and Yuki Kajiura's soundtrack elevates everything to another level. It's a perfect blend of spectacle and sorrow, the kind of series that stays with you long after it ends. Gyo is an OVA based on the manga by legendary horror creator Junji Ito, and being the first Junji Ito work to receive an anime adaptation, it unfortunately feels underwhelming. When I first watched it, I didn't really know how to feel. As a horror anime, it just didn't impress me. The plot fell flat and the monsters didn't carry much impact. At the time, I hadn't read the manga yet, but once I did, the differences became glaring. The characters are changed, the tone falls off, and the art style is inconsistent. The characters' animation itself is smooth enough, but the monsters look bland and unthreatening. Strange, especially coming from a studio like Ufotable, which usually so good at blending CG into the animations. In the end, I really wanted to like Gyo, but it just didn't land for me. It's a disappointing adaptation of a legendary horror manga. Minori Scramble is another absurd comedy OVA from Ufotable, this time adapting the manga by Mikage Chihaya. The story follows Tamaki Kagegawa, elementary school girl who absolutely hates penguins. Her father decides to cure her penguin phobia by creating a Minori, a human-like robot girl dressed in a penguin suit. It's a mix of slapstick comedy, absurd gags, and unexpectedly heartfelt moments between the two characters. Like Yuri Seijin Naoko-san, this is one of those shows I can enjoy for its weirdness, but I don't feel need to revisit. One film from Ufotable's catalog that really surprised me was Magical Sisters Yoyo and Nene. I didn't expect much going in, but I ended up liking it way more than I thought I would. From the very beginning, the magical settings and gorgeous backgrounds reminded me of a Ghibli movie. The stories follows Yoyo and Nene, two witch sisters who work as Noroya, specialists in placing and lifting curses. One day, a gigantic tree suddenly appears, entangled with tall buildings from another world. During their investigations, Yoyo is accidentally transported to modern-day Japan, where she meets two children whose parents have been cursed and turned into monsters. Yoyo, later joined by Nene, agrees to help lift the curse and unravel the mystery linking the two worlds. On the surface, it looks like a kids movie, and in many ways it is aimed at younger audience, but it's also surprisingly dark at times. Some of the themes and scenes hit harder than you expect, and Ufotable didn't hold back on the production quality. The visuals are absolutely stunning, with moments felt both magical and haunting. If I had one complaint, it's just the character could have used a bit more depth, but overall, I don't regret stumbling across this film at all. It's a hidden gem in Ufotable's lineup. As someone who started Fate franchise from the original visual novel, I couldn't wait to see how Ufotable would adapt Unlimited Blade Works, and I wasn't disappointed. While the Saber route will always hold a special place in my heart because of its ending, Unlimited Blade Works ended up being my favorite story overall. The conflict between Shiro and Archer is one of my favorite dynamics in the entire Fate franchise. It's emotional, philosophical, and epic all at once. I love Unlimited Blade Works. I've watched it so many times and it never loses its impact. Ufotables really outdid themselves here. The animations is jaw-dropping, the action is breathtaking, and the production values are on another level. It's a stunning adaptation of one of Fate's best stories. Whenever I think about the God Eater anime, the first thing that comes to mind is its art style and character design. It looks almost like a moving painting, unique and striking in a way you don't often see in anime. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally I really like it. The animation itself is solid as you expect from Ufotable. Unfortunately, the story didn't grab me in the same way. I've never played the game, so maybe that's why I felt less attached, but the narrative never quite blew me away. It had potential, but it just didn't land for me emotionally. That said, for the art style and animation alone, I don't regret watching it. It's a series I remember more for how it looked. Another game adaptations, another entry from the Tales series. Now, many fans of the franchise often consider Tales of Zestiria to have one of the weakest stories in the lineup. But honestly, I still found myself enjoying these anime adaptations more than I expected. Maybe simply because how beautiful it looks. I can say how faithful it is to the original game since I haven't played it, but as a standalone viewing experience, it was decent. The story itself isn't groundbreaking or especially inspiring, but the sheer quality of Ufotable's visuals pulled me in. The animation's background and effects gave the series a polish that kept me watching, even when the plot wasn't the strongest. Like many Ufotable's modern work, Katsugeki Touken Ranbu is visually stunning. The action scenes are fluid, the backgrounds are gorgeous, and the production quality is everything you'd expect from the studio at this point. But as much I admire the visuals, I found it hard to connect with the story or the characters. Maybe it's because I never played the game it's based on, or maybe I'm not just the target audience for these adaptations. Whatever the reason, the emotional core didn't land for me the way I hoped it would. Made for the big screen, Fate's Stay Night Heaven's Feel is without a doubt one of the most visually stunning projects Ufotable has ever created. The films combine breathtaking animations with story that deeply philosophical, filled with tragedy, layered with intense actions. For me, it stands as one of Ufotable's greatest achievements. At first, I was a little disappointed when I realized Ufotable had cut out several scenes from the beginning of the story, but looking back, it makes sense. Those events had already been covered in animated Blade works, and reanimating them again would have been redundant. After all, Heaven's Feel is a route you really shouldn't watch without having experienced animated Blade works first. Among the three Fate routes, Heaven's Feel is by far the heaviest and most emotionally devastating. It fills with moments that can break your heart and leave you speechless. And yet, that's also what makes it so unforgettable. To me, Heaven's Feel is nothing short of a masterpiece, an anime film trilogy that proves why Ufotable is in a league of its own. This little crossover special was honestly more fun than I expected. It takes some of the quirky side characters from Fate's Stay Night and mashes them together with World of Fate Grand Order, wrapping it all up in a light-hearted comedy full of ridiculous gags, playful parodies. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a silly spin-off, a harmless gag anime with over-the-top jokes. But as someone who follows Fate Grand Orders, I found myself smiling through most of it. And just when you think it's going to stay simple, Ufotable does what Ufotable always does. They go all out on the animations. The final act suddenly rounds things up with the action scenes that look far better than they have any right to in a short spin-off like this. Today's menu for Emiya family is the kind of anime I go to when I just want to relax. It's soft, cozy, and completely free of drama. A slice of life spin on the Fate universe that trades battles for cooking and laughter. There's something so comforting about seeing characters I already know and love simply living peaceful life together. Instead of clashing in life or death, they're gathered around the dinner table, enjoying good food and each other's company. Every episode feels like a warm hug filled with smiles, simple joys, and mouth-watering dishes. I've rewatched this series multiple times, and honestly, my only complaint is that there aren't more episodes. I just want more. A lot of people say Demon Slayer's story is boring, but I've never agreed with that. To me, its simplicity is exactly why it resonates with such a wide audience. The plot is straightforward, easy to follow, and accessible to just about anyone, whether they're longtime anime fans or newcomers. But of course, a simple story alone isn't enough to explain its massive popularity. Plenty of anime have basic premises. The difference here is Ufotable. Their adaptation elevates Demon Slayer far beyond its foundations. Every frame, every battle, every quiet moment is crafted with breathtaking care. This is the perfect example of why Ufotable deserves its reputation as a top-tier studio. That said, it isn't flawless. My biggest frustration with the anime is its pacing, especially during the Hashira training arc, which felt unnecessarily stressed out. Still, even with its bumps, the sheer visual spectacle and emotional weight of the adaptations keep me engaged from the start to finish. Ufotable's evolutions has been remarkable. From their modest beginnings in the early 2000s, they've grown into one of the most respected and widely praised animation studios in the industry. And it's not without reasons. The care and dedications they pour into each of their projects is clear in every frame. They're not studio like A1 Pictures or Toei Animations that pumps out countless shows every year. Instead, Ufotable focuses on fewer projects, but each one feels special, crafted with intentions, detail, and passions. That's why whenever they announce something new, I can't help but feel excited. For me, Ufotable is a studio worth waiting for. No matter what their next projects ends up being, I'll be there, curious and eager to see how they'll surprise me once again.